So we're going to go ahead and start over here with Ellie. Will you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Ellie Lustin. I'm an occupational therapist at a clinic close by called Therapy West. As an occupational therapist, we're really looking at the child from a holistic perspective. We're looking at physical aspects, mental aspects, social aspects, sensory aspects that are all going into how they're accessing their daily activities, whether that be in school, at home, their environment, everything that goes into them accessing what occupies their time. That's where our name comes from. So like I said, right now I'm at a pediatric clinic, so focusing on children, early intervention, but also through age 18, and I'm also working in schools as well.
Awesome. Welcome. Thank you, Ellie.
Hi, my name is Glenda Ray, and thank you for having Ms. Smith. I am the director of the Napa Kids Academy in Hawthorne. It's an early intervention facility which has a lot of therapies to offer. So we have occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, as well as an NPS, which is a non-public preschool that has about 7 children in the program as of now. That age is from 3 to 6. At their 6th birthday, they exit the program, and then they go further into a transitional kindergarten or another special kindergarten that meets their needs. The early intervention program is from 18 months to 3 years old. Usually once the kids, if they feel that the NPS is a good fit, they can transition, but like Ms. Smith said, it is a fight for everything. They just don't fight, they just don't go right into that program because usually the parents, the district has a plan for them. So whatever district they live in, they want them to come to that district. And usually by our center being small and intimate, the parents want them there because it's a better nurturing fit for them because it is a small classroom and every child does have an aide.
And let me just add, thank you so much, Glenda. She's being very humble and modest, but I did mention that a lot of the people on the panel are here because I have a personal connection to them. So my son goes to Napa Kids Academy. Well, he's in the preschool, and it took almost a year to get him in, and it included hiring an attorney. That is how hard we had to fight to get him into that program, and it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal, and I knew that as soon as I toured that school, I went to 9 different schools. As soon as I stepped into that preschool, I broke down and I started crying. Big surprise to my students, right? Because I saw that was where my son belonged. My son is medically fragile. He has very severe challenges, and I knew that school was amazing. But because it's a non-public school, we had to fight. We had to prove that LAUSD did not have an appropriate place for him. It took almost a year with an attorney to get him there. So I just want you to know that the place that she's describing is like heaven on earth for my son. Yeah. Thank you, Glenda.
You're welcome.
My name is Isabel Cueva. I'm a client services manager at Harbor Regional Center. I work in the early childhood department. The majority of the cases that we see are for families that have children that are at risk for developmental delay, that are going through early start or early intervention services. We also have children who have already been diagnosed with a developmental disability, and we provide services for the families and for the children. I oversee service coordinators who work directly with the families, and they help coordinate services such as occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech. We also help provide support for the families, provide resources, guide them through the different systems that are available. But like Dr. Smith said, everything's a fight. And even with us, as much as we try to assist the families, there are a lot of different barriers to getting services for children. I think it's really important what Ms. Marini is doing and giving you guys information and resources, because a lot of times people that are working with children directly are kind of that on the front line trying to figure out what kind of services you should be recommending for parents, because parents don't know what to ask for. They don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times the service coordinators or the people that are working as service providers for the families kind of get stuck in our routines, and there's certain things that we're looking at. So we need everybody's help to really be able to wrap around the family and provide all the services that are available. But part of what our job is at the regional center is to help provide guidance and support for families who are dealing with children who have special needs.
Thank you, Isabel.
My name is Carla Unidor. I have a 17-year-old who has cerebral palsy and a 13-year-old who's an atypical child. Zachary was diagnosed when he was 6 months old, so at 6 months, that's when I began the fight, pretty much, because the services are out there, but nobody's gonna go ahead and give them to you. You have to literally fight to get the bare necessities for your child. And I remember one of the first things that they said, they're like, why are you fighting? He's so little. Why are you fighting to get so much therapy? And I looked at the person and I told him, like, let me make it very easy for you. Would you like to service this child as early as possible, and let's hope that he can go ahead and thrive and let's reach for his higher potential? Or would you like to service this child for the rest of his life until he dies? And she just stayed quiet, and I told her, I'm like, thank you. And I'm like, so if it's gonna work, I wanna see if it works right now. The earlier the better. And if it doesn't work, believe me, I'm not gonna be fighting for something that he's not gonna need. I work for LAUSD. I've been with LA Unified for 20 years, almost 21. I'm a special ed assistant. I went to Cal State LA, and I got my bachelor's degree in urban learning. I began my credential, but I get very nervous taking tests, so I haven't passed my CBEST, so therefore I cannot finish my credential. So I'm just there being the best, actually the best TA that I can be. And I don't mind it, I love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. If anyone has an empty seat next to them, can you raise your hand? I think there's one over there. So those of you who just came in, welcome. Welcome, my ladies. Hi, thank you for coming. Any others? Somebody can take the one in front. Beth, do you want to go in the front? And then there's a couple in the back. Awesome, thank you so much. Thank you, Kimberly.
Hi, my name is Kim Bickerton. I am a physical therapist and I work for LA Unified. I have also, in my time being a PT, worked always with pediatrics, but in early intervention as well as private practice. I've been with LAUSD since 2001. I work at several schools on the west side. I have one elementary school, one special education center that has students who are middle school and high school, and then another general education campus. And I've been doing this for quite a while. So I get to interact with parents and classroom assistants and teachers, and it's an interesting area, like specialty area, I think, of the PT. We're looking at students' needs age 3 till they turn 22 within that educational setting. So whereas I think OT is doing, like in the clinic, they're looking at it for more of like a medical or like developmental model. We look at things from more of an educational model. So it's just a different area within looking at helping students like being able to participate in school and to access their program. So.
Thank you so much, Kimberly.
My name is Marla. I was a special education teacher for about 20 years, and I've taught high school. I lasted in high school for about 2 years. I've taught elementary school, and about 10 years ago I went down to preschool. I currently, as of the past 3 years, I've been working with brand new special education teachers in LA Unified. Colleagues are here, I didn't know that. So I work primarily in the East, and I oversee about 94 preschool programs for kids with disabilities. And about 3 years ago, LA Unified started to roll out this 5-year plan to open more preschool classrooms because they were overcrowded and there were too many kids in classrooms, and so they got a lot of money and they hired one of me for every area. So there's 6 areas in LA Unified, and I'm one of 6. So I'm an instructional coach, and I work with the brand new teachers. So 3 years ago, we had about 230 programs district-wide, and now we have about 550. In the last 3 years, we've doubled in size. So there's a lot of brand new teachers in these classrooms, and They started an emergency credential all over again about 3-4 years ago to catch people with bachelor's degrees, and if you get into a university program, you can get into a classroom for a year until you get into a program. But if anybody's interested in that, you can talk to me later. I am also a parent of a special needs child. I have a 30-year-old daughter who was diagnosed when she was in first grade with learning disabilities and dyslexia. And that's how I got into this field. I sat in an IEP as a parent who knew nothing, and they used all kinds of words that I didn't understand. And so I started back to school, and it took me about 12 years to get my first master's degree, because I was a single parent and I went 2 nights a week. And so community college was a home for about 5 years in the process of getting there. So all I can say to you guys is keep going, because it is possible. And it's hard. So I hope we're entertaining, because I do understand that night classes in community college are rough. So I hope that you guys get a lot out of this. But anyway.
Thank you, Marcia.
Hi, I'm Sipa. I currently work for a foundation that is headed by Judith Arnault. She really should be up here because she's my #1 cheerleader, my #1 support, my best friend. She's amazing. And sometimes I have the roughest days and I come home and I'm like, Judith from school, and she's just the best support. But anyway, I digress. I didn't realize some of the panel would be about the fight, so I didn't include this in my bio, but I did work for the Department of Insurance. I worked for Commissioner Dave Jones as a legal analyst. We have, there's a unit there, it's called the Consumer Law Unit. And when I was there, we were spearheading the legislation that insurance companies have to cover for autism. So we were a special unit designed to handle this, along with other regulations that we were pushing. This was a big one, and it's very important if anybody in the special needs community. It's very important to Dave Jones to address the special needs community and autism specifically. So that's part of the fight, is getting the diagnosis so your insurance can cover. I have a special needs son, and I can say that my specific, I'm supposed to introduce myself, so I just want to keep it short. My specific situation is very unique. Part of the fight with LUSD is getting that IEP to get them diagnosed, to get the services. Well, what if you can't get that diagnosis? What do? So you get that bad IEP, and then you go to the insurance, and they say, well, we're not going to cover because LAUSD isn't diagnosing as such. So your real option is to go to private school, go through your insurance, and get it covered. And that's the situation I'm in. I'm actually in a private school setting with my son, constantly, making sure that insurance is covering. And it is, you have an out-of-pocket maximum, but until you get there, it's a struggle. So that's my fight. And I hope you guys have fun tonight, as she said, because it is late, and I'll try to be entertaining, I don't know. But anyway, that's my time.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Donna. I'm a parent of 3 children, 2 boys, 1 girl. Both of my boys were diagnosed with autism. The oldest was diagnosed with the most severe autism. Basically, you pretty much name it. He had challenges with climbing stairs. He had no communication whatsoever. He was diagnosed at 2 years, 7 months, and at the time when he was diagnosed, he was testing, just to give you an idea, 6 months, 9 months, I think 12 was the most on his developmental skills. They told me to get prepared because he was most likely going to live in a home for the rest of his life. I threw that in the back of my head. I rolled up my sleeves. I educated myself, and I fought. And I fought. And not only did I fought every year for the same therapies, year after year after year. And I am proud to say, after a variety of programs and always mastering a skill and going to the next level, from special ed schools to, he is now completely in a typical environment with very, I think about 3 therapies in school, no more private. So he went from, on the average, about 46 between 38 and 45, 46 hours a week of therapy
Wow.
to basically just focusing on school. And he's been referred to as a poster child for early intervention. And we feel very blessed and very
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. So thank you. So you can see we have a wealth of knowledge and experiences here with our panel, a wide array of areas represented. So now this is where you guys come in, our audience. So it's up to you. Ask questions. So you can ask a question for a specific panelist, or you can ask a general question where any panelist can answer. Okay, so I'll just look for hands and I'll call on you. So who's going to throw out our first question?
I would just like to ask everybody. I have a neighbor. She has a son. He's in high school now. And she seems to have a constant fight with everybody. I guess he's doing pretty good with other stuff. She has an attorney. She has this. She has that. And it's always something. I don't know what her fight is today. I texted her to tell her that I was here, but I haven't gotten something back. So she might be doing something again. But it seems like it's always something that she has, that she seems to cry a lot, every week, because it's always something that upsets her that goes on. So I don't know.
So what's your question?
My question is that it's always a fight that she seems to fight about something that's going on in his life.
Until public education sees children with disabilities as valuable as typical children, the funding, it's always about the funding. And, kids in typical classes or kids in gifted classes, they're catered to and they get all this funding. They have smaller class sizes for kids who are highly gifted. I never understood that because kids who are highly gifted, they can do it. They don't need that, but they're coddled, and they're the ones that bring in the high test scores and all the things at schools, at public schools, where they look and they want to be distinguished and they want this and they want that, and now there's all these charters. And it's like until all kids are valued equally, it's always going to be a fight, because kids with special needs, they cost a lot of money. They require a lot of services. And sometimes, I have 2 kids, and I have one with disabilities and one who's gifted, and my son was always catered to, given this, and it was always a fight for me too, and it was always really hard for me to understand, coming from a place where I fight for my little kids with disabilities. But I just don't think that people see them in the same light, and it's, they all have abilities. Everybody has abilities. It's just that some have different abilities, that's all. So I think that's where a lot of the fight comes from. It's just the funding. It's a lot of the funding issues. It's always funding issues. But, sorry.
No, that's awesome. Thank you.
Education
Yes,
is
over
the
here.
biggest,
Oh, go ahead, Carla.
Education is the biggest business out there. If you look at whoever's in charge of our district, they're not, their background is not education, it's always business. So it's lucrative, it's where the money. How can they save money in the classroom, but if you go over to their offices, Folger building, everything is like top notch. And that's just, we can't just sit here and say that, it's just LA Unified. It's every single district, in every single state, in every single country. That's just the way it is. So with that being said, it's just that there's a lot of fingers being pointed, but there's a lot for you guys to actually do. And just wanted something that I wanted to bring up to you. If you guys are going into early education field, you guys are the first face that we see as parents.
Yeah.
You guys are the first ones, so it's up to you, to be honest with you, it's up to you what kind of taste you guys are going to leave in our mouths. I don't know about Marini, but I remember when my son was diagnosed, he was 6 months, and then when he got all this therapy, I kept fighting, it's like finally he was a year old, and I was like, oh my God, he got everything and anything that he needed. I was still paying a lot of stuff out of pocket, a lot. But once he transitioned into LA Unified, once again, you go over to the school it's in your area, you're assigned this school. And mind you, I already worked for LA Unified, so I knew, they have to give me a list of perhaps programs, schools that are out there that will benefit or that would be a good fit for my son. And then they're telling me, oh, well, this is his homeschool, he can come here. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you're telling me what I'm sorry, I didn't hear you right. You're telling me what's the best fit for my son? I'm like, you just met him. I'm like, I'll go ahead and, go around and visit your campus, but I need a list. She's like, well, we don't give lists. I'm like, well, I'm not signing that IEP. I'm like, you can go ahead and go to due process. I don't care. You tell me what you want to do. I know my rights. So we walked around in one of the classes. It was, mind you, they're 3 years old. And I walked into one of the classrooms, and the first thing that the teacher says, my husband is 6'5", big black guy. And then there's this little girl in there. I'm in there. I'm like, oh my God, what is going to happen? And my husband is holding my son. And the teacher comes up to me and she's like, oh, what's his disability? And they say, what's his diagnosis? And I'm like, okay. And then I told him, no big deal. I can tell you everything that my son has gone through. I'm not ashamed and I'm not afraid. I'm an open book. So I told him, he has cerebral palsy, seizure disorder. I started saying all this, and he's also cortical blindness. Oh, another blind child. I already have 3 in this class, and I was like, oh, like, is she really supposed to be sick? And I'm like, no, she's not. But turn around, walk away. She just closed the deal. There's no. So I just wanted to let you know, whatever you say, how you act, what you do, you're the first face. You're the first person that we get to see, that we get to experience. You're the first for everything. And you don't have to have the answers. But you can go ahead and say, you know what, I'm not sure. Let me find out for you. I'll get back to you. Let me see if I can find information from a parent. I've heard of this. And something that I really appreciate, and I always tell the parents, is like, you know what's free for one person doesn't mean that you're going to get exactly, because every child is individual. You're going to get what your child needs. Well, you're going to get what they want to give you, but you're going to fight for what you need for your child.
Yes. Thank you, Carla. Thank you so much.
My husband was an attorney, he's an attorney now, he was an attorney for the Department of Justice for 8 years, and I was working at JP Morgan in the Department of Insurance, but at that time I was at JP Morgan also. And I said to the lady, I said, we're both in, and I came in there like, we're both in law, you're going to give us all the services. And the bottom line is that I think the passion of the parent, finding out your public resources, regional center, lawyers, okay, it's great to hire them, and if you need them, perfect, and pay them, fine. But really your passion and making yourself aware of all the public resources, I think is really key. Don't think that because you don't have money to hire a lawyer, you're out of luck or there's a problem. I can tell you that I never hired a lawyer, and when all they said to me when they brought back the IEP was, well, we know you're going to fight, so we'll give you, and they really didn't even give us much. And, you just have to really, I think as a parent, just the passion and making yourself available, whether it be even Department of Insurance. Most people don't know there's a consumer hotline. The Department of Insurance fights really hard for people. Most people don't know that. I've steered a lot of parents in that direction. Regional center is fantastic. Yes, it's before the age of 3. Just hound them before 3 years old, and then talk to people and find out who's the nice ones, who's the not so nice ones. You're going to have to make lists, naughty and nice lists. These are things that as a parent, just because you don't have money, you can really drive success. You don't need a lawyer to drive success. I'm not saying don't hire a lawyer, I'm just saying you can do it.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
I was gonna ask if this service is still available, but my mom graduated from psychology and she worked with children with special needs with their parents, like educating their parents on how to deal with their children. There's a lot of parents that she dealt with that would like spank their kids because they didn't understand why they're doing the things that they're doing, or like scold them or like make them sit in the corner. I was wondering if that because when she was working there, they were already cutting funding to it. I was wondering if you guys know anything about like parent coaching.
Good question.
I was gonna say, it really depends on what the disability is or what the age of the child is. But if you're connected with the regional center, one of the main things that we focus on is when we're providing a service, especially in our early intervention services, our focus is parent education. You can get physical therapy, occupational therapy, whatever therapy, but you're only gonna be in that setting for an hour, 2 hours a day. You're at home with your child the rest of that time, and you need to know what to do to continue stimulating development and growth. So we really always fund services that require parent participation. That's our biggest focus, because for early intervention, we need to make sure that the parent is equipped to continue developing those skills for their child. So that's really what we like to focus on, not just in direct therapies, but we also try to come up with different resources or support groups that the families can go to. Their mommy and me types of classes, so that they continue getting education that can even work for typical children. But with that special emphasis on, you have to keep equipping yourself.
Yeah, because when she would go
skills
to
teach the parents.
when she would go to their home to like work with the child, the parents would be like, okay, bye. And she's like, no, I'm not here to just teach your kid whatever. I'm here to teach you how to deal with your child because he's having these problems because of something that's happening. Like she mostly worked with kids with autism or Down syndrome. And there was one child that would come home and put like his head between the mattress and the box board, like of his bed, because the lights at his school were too bright. And that's how he coped when he got home. But his dad would get mad at him for that. So she was like trying to teach parents how to deal, or why the kid might be doing whatever they're doing.
And part of what we come across often with certain parents, depending on how much exposure you've had in the past to what special needs are about or diagnoses are about, I mean, we come across parents who have never heard the word autism. And they've got all these behaviors at home with their child, and they have no clue, and they're getting frustrated about, why is my child flicking the lights off and on all day long when he's just being bad? And they're not understanding the sensory needs, they're not understanding the diagnosis piece of it. So that's why it's so important that there is parent education connected to that service that they're receiving, so that they can get that educational piece. There's different ways to get that, so there's a lot of different services. Usually the direct service that's being provided is giving the parents education, but also if we're going through the appointments with psychologists where they're giving the diagnosis, there should always be some kind of a formal session with that psychologist if there's a diagnosis that's being given, to explain what the diagnosis means, to explain what those symptoms are going to look like, to explain what kinds of interventions might be appropriate, to explain how some of those behaviors are connected to the diagnosis. So it's always constant educating the parent. And then we also at regional centers have resource centers that we're connected to, where there's always videos, books, pamphlets, and other information that the parents will have access to continue educating themselves on what some of those behaviors might be, what the behaviors might be, and how they might display themselves in home.
So, to add on, Glenda, and then Marla, you had your hand up, right?
Yeah, I was
Response,
okay.
okay.
ABA and behavioral therapy is a big component to kids who might exert these behaviors. So that's one that the therapists come inside the home, or they might give a hand at the school and be a one-to-one for a child. And they come into the home and they show the parents how they can deal with behaviors. They help the parents modify the behaviors. Also, they align the child with all the curriculum that they do at school. So this will help the child with cognitive ability, self-help, motor skills. They'll do it all in the home. And when that child is displaying those negative behaviors, they'll go ahead and help the parent on how to modify these behaviors and keep data on that to make sure that these behaviors are less frequent. So that's a big deal.
I mean, does every parent has to educate? I mean, what do you need? Go to online classes or what is it? I mean, some parents, they can't go on to college, so how they get that help?
If you have a child with special needs?
Yeah.
So if you have a child with a special need, usually it depends on the age for one. So then you have the services available to you, like Regional can help you as far as getting an assessment for the child. Usually parents come inside to the Regional Center because their child is experiencing a language delay. That's usually the biggest one for early intervention. My child is not talking, his brother is talking, his sister is talking, why is he not talking? So then from there, they set up an IFSP, which is an individualized family service plan that is going to outline basically like IEP, but it's for the family. So it's something for the whole family to work on. We get that IFSP in the early intervention program. Once we get the IFSP and the early intervention program, we align that with how we're gonna work with the child. Me being the director, I speak with the teachers to let them know, this is how we're gonna help them with this language, this is what I would like to see in 6 months, and this is how we're gonna get there. So usually, if the kids have no language, we start with minimum signs like more, all done, help, just simple signs, thank you. Most of the kids leaving the program can do that, some imitation with language. Then after the IFSP and after I do a 6 months checklist, I do write reports for the regional center based off of my assessment, which is a Hawaii checklist. It's from 0 to 3 years old. Basically, it's going to mark the milestones for the child to let them know exactly where they should be and where they're delayed at. I give that, once they exit the program, I give a copy to the mom if she needs it for the IEP. I submit one to the regional center, and then usually they'll let the parent know if he needs a developmental plan, which is the education plan, or he needs a psychological, or she needs a psychological evaluation. Those are the 2 things that are going to let you know what side you're going to be on. Usually, the developmental education plan means that your child is basically probably going to, if he or she is going to go to a special needs class, then they can get integrated into typical classrooms, or they can just exit out the program and whatever delay they're having, they no longer experience it no more. Once they have a psychological evaluation, and that's when the diagnosis comes in.
Thank you. So Marla, to address that question, and then Donna can add on, and then I think that's
She's been raising
Oh,
her
yes,
hand.
yes.
I was just going to talk about LAUSD does have parent counseling. It's part of your IEP. When you're doing the IEP, there's a little toggle switch in there that they have to, the person administering the IEP has to ask you if you're interested in parent counseling. The parent answers yes. We give you forms to fill out, where to go. There's like one in every area. It's monthly, I think, or maybe every 2 weeks, and it's different topics. And they don't start over. They just add on, like, one's behavior. Another one is the IEP process. Another one is probably toilet training. It just depends on where. And then you pop into them as a parent, depending on what you're interested in learning about. But I was going to say, as a preschool teacher, I found that that was probably one of the hardest things for me, because my parents would come into my classroom with their 3-year-old with a diagnosis that they had no idea what it meant. And so as their person, they depended on me to tell them about the regional center, to tell them about PT, to tell them about OT, to let them know these services. I mean, it was hard because the regional center, would explain different disabilities, but as a parent, there is nobody that's going to tell you that. You have to figure it out. You hear from a friend. A lot of my kids would come in by assessment of, I was at the park playing one day and somebody came up to me and said, you really need to go get your child assessed. Like parents, they don't know, or maybe a sibling developed differently, or a cousin, or my sister is a special educator, or somewhere they find out. They either go to the regional center or they go to their local school in their neighborhood, and we provide, if they're 3 or older, we provide the assessment before 3. Regional center does it. Sometimes doctors do it, but a lot of times different disabilities don't get diagnosed by doctors, which autism is rare. I mean, maybe more now, but when I was in the classroom, it wasn't usually done by a doctor. But I think that's probably one of the biggest things lacking for parents is just education. Like there are so many early intervention things that parents can do at home, and simple, easy things, and they don't know because they don't have the education or the schooling or the background. I mean, even with my 30-year-old, had I known then what I know now, I made a lot of wrong decisions with her, pressing her into situations that she was uncomfortable in, and and she's a preschool special education teacher now. She's graduating from Cal State LA, and it's been a fight all the way through for her. She has the services through the Department of Disabilities at Cal State LA. So, those services from her IEP in first grade, that IEP followed her all the way through college and into her graduate program. So, if you learn about it, but it is very hard for parents. It's very difficult.
Thank you. So,
I'm online, it doesn't mean.
Sorry.
Okay, so a lot of you guys answered the question, and it's funny because you actually spoke about something that's in my house. So I have a stepson, so be somebody that already got a kid, stepson. So he's 10 and he has an IEP. And I went to the first IEP, and I know that because I'm not his mom, it makes my boyfriend feel uncomfortable. But the part that is the troubling part is I have a 5-year-old, and now she got her progress report, and they wrote in the gifted section. And the first thing I thought about was, here we go. Because she can read everything everywhere, and he has a lot of struggles. And the thing that bothers me the most, that he has no diagnosis, is only behavior, and he's 10. And I just know that if I met them a long time ago, I would have been all up in there. And you know what I mean? Because my very first school that I ever worked at was 2001. We used to call it Kane Ayers. It's in Culver City. It's a special education school. I don't know what it's called now.
So Kane
Do I know you from there?
No.
Okay. anyway. So that was one of the things that I was like, man, it's like, she walks in the door, Mom, I made Super Scholar today, and I don't want to be like, and it's just like, in him, it's just struggle after struggle. And he hasn't been diagnosed with anything, but I think that he has auditory processing delay, and he has a couple of other learning disabilities. And I sat in that IEP, and when I said that he needed to be tested on his hearing, he needed an auditory processing test, they told me, oh, no, he can hear fine. Then I said, well, that's not what I'm talking about. I was like, he cannot recite things back to you. You ask him a question, he gets bits and pieces. That's why he does the wrong thing. And then so anyway.
If you want to know more about auditory and visual processing deficits, you can talk to me after class, because that's what my daughter has. And I can give you like examples of exactly what they would look like or how it would present.
Because I'm like, nobody wants to get in trouble.
Because it's so
365 days.
Right, and with learning disabilities.
He gets in trouble every day. And I had to shut it down. I shut it down. And of course, you don't, it's weird when you're in a relationship, you don't want to take on that role, but I had to shut it down. Because it was like he was getting in trouble every single day. Now it's all of my business. But it's like he's getting in trouble every single day, and I had to come back to the house, and I was just like, it's not, it can't, it won't. And so, I was hoping that when you guys are from LACO, but you guys aren't. But LACO is over a lot of his stuff, because we do not live in LAUSD. So, we have a lot of LACO hands in there. And
Where's LA County?
Yeah. So, sorry. The election. But this year he's in 5th grade, and now he's in the Redondo Beach School District, and he's doing better than ever. And the IEP, I didn't go, I wasn't invited, but so that's whatever. But they're shipping him back to Inglewood, and I said, okay, but I already know. I'm like, come on now. You shipping him back there, it's just going to fall back. And he's in a better school district now. Because LACO, they can go to any school district as long as LACO, So it's like the dynamic of the gifted and the special needs in the one household. I was just like,
You just have to celebrate his strengths. Everybody has them. Everybody. My son sucked at sports. He was gifted, but he was horrible at sports. And my daughter excelled at sports.
Yes.
So in my house, that's what was celebrated.
And the other thing that I wanted to ask you
There's always
guys,
something.
as far as maybe just the parents, I'm at a preschool, and it's just a general education private preschool. And this is my 14th year in early education. And one of the biggest hurdles that I've noticed as a teacher, and somebody else might notice this at a general education school, is that when you see those signs, you can't say nothing. Your director will fire you. Like they not play. Even if it's a parent conference and you see signs of things, if it's not hearing or sight, you can't even talk about it. And that sucks to me, because it's like 2 years old, I see you walking on your tippy toes, I see you refusing to put on your shoe, I see certain things, and it's like,
But if you educate yourself, like you're in a program right now, and if you educate yourself and find out those interventions that you can use with those students, even though they aren't diagnosed with something, because those interventions work with all kids. Like a lot of things are for all kids, not just kids with disabilities or kids with IEPs. A lot of early interventions work with a lot of children with behaviors, all different kinds of, difficulties or whatever. So my daughter worked in a private preschool and she faced that problem before she went back to school, and I would just tell her things to do with the kids and, help them in the classroom, and then she got close with the parents. But you can't, because we are not doctors, we are teachers. So I can't either. I can't say, or I don't know, you might, you're a doctor.
So I want to take a couple of additional questions. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go, okay,
I wanted
so,
to add something to
okay,
hers.
sure, and then we'll do Bonnie.
You said your boyfriend. It's you guys just started dating, or your daughter? That's
No. That's we have a 1-year-old together. We only have one child together.
Okay,
So he
my
has a 2-year-old
first
and I have a 5-year-old.
thing is that you need to talk to your boyfriend, and you guys need to be on the same page.
I've tried that.
No. Oh, no. If you want to try.
I want to put them on speaker so you can hear me. He doesn't believe me. You know how you try,
You can try. It takes time. It takes time, and you will always be the wise person, the loud person, the one that's gonna call it like you see it, and he's just gonna go ahead and take it. And sometimes you're gonna intimidate, and that's okay. But you need to be able to tell him, you know what? We need to help me, help you, so you can help your son. Because at the end of the day, when your husband, your boyfriend, your better half is gonna fall apart, you're the one that's gonna be picking him up. That's just the way it is. So you have to start educating him on what or how to advocate for your son, for his son. There's gosh, I just went blank. But I also volunteer for Special Needs Network. I don't know if you guys have heard it, but they're a big nonprofit foundation in LA, and they do a lot of parenting workshops. I mean, specialneedsnetwork.org, and they're big.
In the Crenshaw
Their
area.
main component,
Huh? I said it's in the Crenshaw area, like off of Crenshaw and Vernon.
yes, their main component is giving the parents the tools that they need to understand, to help their child, not just to fight for what you got, but how to go about it. Understand really what is it that you're getting yourself into, or what you've been put into. Because you did not ask for anything. You were just like literally put there, and that's where you're at. But you have to get in the same, you have to go in with him and Taco say, we're not gonna sign anything. We're gonna wait. We're gonna take it home. I just had my son's IEP 2 weeks ago. And I did not sign that IEP until I felt like it. And I still did not want to sign, but you know what? That did not keep me in a bit. I'm like, I will sign it because they're getting DVR, so I don't want to get them in trouble. So let me go ahead and sign it. So you don't have to sign that IEP. Or you can
I know
sign.
I knew that already. Like I just in my very first school, special education, I used to write IEPs. Like I used to, I did that already. But that's what I'm saying. I wasn't supposed to. But I always talk about teachers at a good age. But it was just one of those type of things where it's like, I know that. And when he told me that, I was like, what? They're shipping him where? And I was like, have they given him the test yet? Da, 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 da. And I was just like, okay. I didn't know what to do there. But I was worried about the dynamic of my daughter. Now that she's older, she's 5 now, she's in kindergarten now, and she's coming in with the accolades and stuff like that now, and I'm just like,
it gets even at a certain point. My 17-year-old has cerebral palsy, and he's more like a baby, big baby. And then I have a 13-year-old who's okay, atypical child, but it's just like, I'll have 2 Zachary's instead of 2 Isais, because atypical child is really hard to raise. There's a lot of explanation, and when with the one that is super, that I have to do everything for him, I have to do everything for him. I choose what I'm gonna do for him. For the other one, he has a voice, and I have to respect his voice.
Yes.
To a certain, you know, so he knows his brother can't do most of the stuff. And he comes home, he's like, Mom, look, I got this. And I'm like, awesome, babe. He's like, well, how about Zachary? I'm like, you know what? He's healthy. He's not in the hospital. He's breathing. He had a good day today. He got off the bus. He was happy. You said, like, who said it? You know, you celebrate. You celebrate the accomplishment on different, everybody else. You know, on different things for everybody.
I am a public educator, but school is this much of your life, people. Okay?
Yeah.
You go out into the world and you are what you are. Don't let this much of your life define who you are. IEP or no IEP.
That's what I was gonna add, like,
It's, yeah.
statistically, parents with special needs children, the divorce rate goes through the roof. And I was just, I don't know your specific situation, and, you know, I know you're like, let me put my husband, I feel like I should say this, just, the value of a third party if one spouse isn't recognizing it, the value of a friend who can support you, the value of somebody, a dysfunctional home is gonna help nobody. And I'm not saying your home, God forbid, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying I think it's so important to just maintain harmony because honestly, a special needs child, they have such a hard time processing everything that's going around. If they see the parents yelling, God knows what they're processing, and it'll exacerbate the issue. So I just want to say, like, you might be having challenges in certain things. Talk to maybe somebody who has experience with this, but you know, trust me, I know the tension that goes on when one spouse isn't on the same page, and it's very rough. And if it comes later and it's like, oh, if I would have been there at 2 years old, like, all this wouldn't have happened, and you're sitting there like twiddling your thumbs, like, I want to go to the IEP. Totally get it, and it's just so important, I think, to really maintain the house also, just to weigh that super valuable because, as I said, divorce for special needs children, the statistics are very, very high. And it's a lot of it has to do with the fight and how much, you know, the mother will dedicate their time. And it's important. But I just want to put that out there also.
Thank you. I'm going to take 2 more questions before we do final thoughts. So, Bonnie, did you have a question?
She was first.
Okay,
and I do have
so
questions,
Jordan,
but she was first.
and then you guys can combine. Maybe we can.
Like what age, like what's the earliest age that you get diagnosed with autism or something? What are the signs of autism?
I think it's like a year and 8 months or something
18
like
months
that.
now.
Donna, you want to respond?
Something, back in the day, it was like 3. I don't know, it's changing
Probably
rapidly.
answer it better, but I know from my experience with my son, and keep in mind he was diagnosed severe, he couldn't climb the stairs, he couldn't put one foot in front of the other, he had no language, he couldn't grasp things. I went through a denial phase. Some people say that I caught it early at 2 years, 7 months. I think I could have caught it earlier. And you see other kids just surpassing them, younger, with little skills, shrinking, things that they should be doing. Even mimicking mouthing movement, just like what she said, the therapies that people can do, even typical children can benefit from it. I would get them assessed as soon as possible and get them early intervention. It doesn't hurt. It can only help.
I have 5-year-old twins, so I'm just trying to I just want to be on the safe side.
Usually one thing is like the lack of eye contact. They have a lot of self-stimulatory behaviors, like once somebody mentioned like turning the lights off and on, whether they're running back and forth, they're not looking at you. Most kids on the spectrum are looking more at objects than people. So that's one way you can.
At age 5?
At age 5? Yeah. All the like self-help skills, motor skills, language skills, all of that shows a delay in a child. It doesn't have autism because that's like the label that they're trying to get away from. Usually they say that kids children on the spectrum because it's a big spectrum. Your child may have social skills, but they may lack self-help skills, or your child may have motor development, but may lack language skills. So at first, autism, it was lack of everything in all domains, but now it's like, oh, well, he has this, but he doesn't have this. So, yeah, usually you can tell.
Okay.
If your gut tells you,
Yeah, no, right.
if your gut tells you,
Yeah, I just want to be
following.
I don't, they honestly don't give me any like that, like any signs of like kind of being, you know, I don't want to say the wrong word or to, you know what I'm saying, but
Scared.
yeah, so I
It's very
I rather,
prevalent.
I don't know, I just want to know, but as of now, they don't give me signs, they're perfectly fine, they do everything that they're supposed to do as far as, everything that you mentioned, so I just wanted to know the signs and what to look out for.
Mm-hmm. Terry, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
I'm
now
an
you have
educator, I work for a preschool, St. Clements in Southern Charlotte. So scenario, if I have a child who I think might have some issues, where do I tell a parent to go? You know, at this point, they're like 2.8, they're 3, up to age 5. So what do I tell a parent to do? What steps do I give them?
I think the biggest thing is really going to depend on what kinds of issues you think that the child's displaying. Because one of the biggest things that's important to kind of tease out is it something that's developmental or is it something that's mental health? So those are two very different things. If you're looking at behavior and you're concerned about development, you're thinking that the child might be on the spectrum or they might be displaying a speech delay or something like that, always you can refer them to the regional center and we'll be able to kind of tease that out. It doesn't matter what age they are. We'll figure out if it's an early intervention child or if it's a child that's going to have services with granted and which will be the actual disability. So we'll take care of that piece. If in doubt, just send them to the regional center and we'll let them know. If it's something that we're thinking, well, they're already over age 3, it's something it's just a speech delay, we'll direct them to the school district. But we can make that call and that way we don't have to worry about that. Send them to one spot. The other things
Support, I would send them to their support as well.
Yes. The other thing would be to always make sure that you mention to the parents to talk to their pediatrician and let them know what their concerns are or what you're seeing. And then they can also kind of help guide them. Unfortunately, we're still at a point where not every pediatrician is really up to date with development and knowing where to refer people to. But it's always really important that the pediatrician is aware that they are having some kind of a concern so that they can help also in case there's a medical issue that teased out. So for instance, if it's a speech delay that they're experiencing, we still want to make sure that there's nothing wrong with their hearing before you go right into, okay, now you need speech therapy. So there's medical components to things too. So it's, I would always say send the parent to the pediatrician and also mention that is covered.
And then as an educator, once there is an IEP or there's some kind of plan, I'm not always given anything other than the IEP that says you have a need speech or you need this. How do I help? Because I'm not given the tool to help at school, I'm just being told that there's a problem.
Are you
So
a
what can
teacher or
I
are you a
do?
TA?
I'm the teacher.
Okay, so I would be, if you get a copy of the IEP, the first thing that I would look at would be the diagnosis and then the goals. That way you know what they're looking, what they want that child to work on, to achieve, to eventually get and move on to the next goal. Because sometimes most likely you won't, and it's always as a team. For me, it's always a team, it's a village. It's not gonna be, you have to, if that child, it's in your classroom. If there's a speech therapist walking in, if there's an OT, if there's a
That's the
PT.
problem, they don't come to our school. So I don't ever talk to anyone as part of the IEP.
Here's a place to start, the parent.
Are you,
You ask the parent, you talk to the parent, I'm sorry.
that's okay.
I think you really need to make sure that you're asking questions with the parent, because there's certain things you're only, because of HIPAA and confidentiality rules, there's only so much information that can be placed, and you're only gonna know whatever the parent shares. So even at an IEP meeting, you might not know that that parent's connected to regional center or connected to other therapies unless that parent really shares that information too. We can't disclose, hey, by the way, that child is also one of our clients, unless we have permission from the family to be able to share that kind of information. So if you start with the parent first, if you're noticing something and you're saying, I want to be able to better serve your child, and I want to make sure that I know all the information that I need to know, go directly to the person that has that information, that's the parent.
Are you through Volunteers of America?
No.
Because,
Oh,
the use of Salvation.
Kimberly,
For me as a school-based therapist, so I'm providing the the PT services for the kids, like from their IEPs. If it's like a district preschool, like we're in those classes and I'm like constantly, like I try to push in and I try to work within kind of that context of the classroom. So and we provide a lot of like education to the classroom teachers, to the classroom staff, so there's carryover of those activities as well as pull out when we need to. But like I think to get those therapists, like to give you suggestions, like if they're not providing the services at your specific site, I mean, I know I see kids who are private preschoolers, parents bring them to their school of residence, but I always try to make sure that I go observe at their preschool, I talk to the preschool teachers. I mean, we will do that, so I think if you have concerns about a specific kid or you want strategies like from the occupational therapist or the physical therapist or the speech therapist, I would talk to the parents to see if you can speak to their like related services team within that school district, because we're more than happy to come and, you know, provide strategies and ideas. And like I'll go out to schools, like we can't treat in like a private preschool, but I can go there and do observations and collaborate with the teachers or talk to you on the phone. So I mean, it's definitely, there's options to be able to get in contact. I would talk to the parents to say, you know, I really want to talk to the OT because I need help with whatever it may be within the classroom. I mean, they're there to help support them in the school.
So we're going to take the last question from Bonnie, and then I'm going to ask the panelists to just do a brief, maybe 20-second closing thought, anything that you want to leave the group with, any important reminders or reiterating something that was said, just any final thought that you want to leave the panelists, leave the participants with. Bonnie?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for being here and for your time. I have a question. Let's say you're a teacher or a childcare provider, and then you want to approach the parent because you have noticed some behaviors, and like after you have your background of everything that you have learned, you have noticed the behaviors, but then the parents, they say that because you don't have children of your own, you don't know. So how do you approach them? How do you go from there? Because I've heard it, and then it feels frustrating and sad at the same time, because you are seeing that there's something going on with the children, that they need help, but then the parents' mind is like super close, saying, but you don't even have children of your own. How do you know about parenting? I even saw it in another group that I'm in, that the mom was complaining that the child care provider was telling her things, but she doesn't even have children of her own, and they were like, is she going to school? Yeah, she's going to child development, but that doesn't mean that she knows, because I know because they're my children. So how do you go? Like, what do you say? I don't know. So anybody would like to tell me?
Parents do know. I just want to put that out there.
That's
They have a wealth of information, and they do know a whole lot, and they are a very important part of the team. But as a preschool teacher, all of our assessments and all of our instruction is based on developmental levels, like what kids do at certain ages. And so we have, in K through 12, there's Common Core, state standards. In preschool, we have the Preschool Learning Foundations, which are the developmental levels in the 6 domains. And so we follow that. So we know basically, like she was saying, when she got her assessments, that your child was functioning at a certain age level. So that's where, you know, so you can approach it by saying, well, he's 36 months old, and this is what it says is X, Y, and Z, and I'm noticing that, you know, he's struggling over here in the area of language. He's only speaking in one-word phrases, or he should be speaking in two-word phrases. So you can base it on the developmental milestones that a child goes through as they're getting bigger. We use, in LA Unified, well, the state of California, it's the frameworks, the learning foundations for preschool. So that's our Common Core. That's why I tell people Common Core, because they understand that. It's our learning foundations, yeah. We don't guess, like there's scientific stuff. Yeah. Yeah, and it's also, it can be cultural, it can be age, it can be a lot of things. You know, if they're older and you're young, if it's different cultures, there's a lot of different things that come into play. It's very personal as a parent. Somebody on the outside telling you something's wrong with their child, you know, when a parent brings their 3 or 4-year-old to you, that's their greatest gift that they've ever, anything in their life, that's their biggest accomplishment, you know? And then that's why, unfortunate for your 5th grade son that gets told that he's not behaving all the time, because, you know, that's, it's not okay. That people internalize that stuff. Kids internalize that stuff. You know, unfortunate, that's another side of teaching. But, you know, not my side, but I fought that fight too. So, but I think, you know, parents are very valuable. They have a lot of input, a lot of information.
And many parents don't know it, that they have a lot of power.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't want that, you know, some cultures, the teacher's looked upon as the person who knows everything, and you went to school, you tell me what's wrong with my child, you fix them, you do, you know, and then in other cultures it's like, well, in our culture that's not a problem, you know, we don't care if they do that. So, you know, you're just navigating a lot of different, it's a lot, you know.
Thank you. And thank you so much, panelists. Thank you for all the questions that you guys have brought up, and I'm sure that we have many other questions, but I want to give the panelists an opportunity just to give their final thoughts, and then we'll end our session formally, and then if you have any extra questions, I know that some of the panelists brought handouts. You can ask them for a copy of the handout, and if you have any other follow-up questions and want to exchange information, you're more than welcome to do that, okay? So I'll give the panelists like a few seconds to think about what they want to leave you with, and then I'll start. Is okay if I start on this side? Okay.
I'll go ahead and start.
Okay, great.
As developing professionals, what I want to leave you guys is with this: educate yourselves. Educate yourselves on as many. There's a lot of different types of therapies out there, and not one thing works for all children. So some of the things that worked most with my child were not the popular ones. And every child has its own fit. So I would suggest you guys educate yourselves, be open. There's constantly new education, new therapies being developed by doctors. And I would do that as a parent and as a caregiver, or if somebody's in your family, or if you know somebody. It really takes a village, and anything you can do to support that. And as a parent, educate yourself, or as a caregiver, as a sibling, educate yourself, because if a lot of those therapies are, although you may not end up being a therapist as a family member, you can practice a lot of those things, and that's double the therapy. And you will get to those milestones 10 times quicker than if you don't practice it. So I would say it's also a lifestyle, so education.
Thank you, Donna.
I just want to say thank you so much for bringing me here. It's really inspirational to see everyone from different backgrounds, different ages, here at 8 o'clock at night, staying overtime. It's really inspirational. With 3 kids, I'm like, when I came on, I'm like, Judith, oh my gosh, like, college is just flooding me, college memories, and it's just so, it's like, I don't know if I'd be able to do college again. Like, I'm totally inspired. Thank you so much for having me. My one thing I would say is that keep your kids happy. I think happiness is major. I pulled my kid out of school for a month. Everyone thought I was nutty. And I'm like, he's just getting disciplined at school. What's that going to produce? An unhappy kid. And I think just keeping the kid happy is really going to be success. Because at the end of the day, what's success? Success is not the person who's depressed because they had a horrible childhood. They can get over it. You're going to spend a lot more money on therapy than money on just keeping them home. Those are my closing thoughts.
Thank you.
Okay, so first I wanted to say that early intervention is paramount and can totally change a child's trajectory, as we've heard from different parents here. So it's all about early intervention. In fact, I came down to preschool because I noticed there was a lot more success stories with younger kids than teaching kids, older kids with disabilities. At the high school level, you know, when you're working with seniors, they've been told for like 12 years of schooling that they're not worth anything. So it's a lot to undo, you know, by the time they're seniors. But I brought this quote because it's my favorite quote, and I made a copy for everybody, but you don't have to take it if it's not like your thing. But it's about teaching. So it says, I've come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element in the classroom. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess a tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated and a child humanized or dehumanized. And I used to have that in my notebook, and I give it to all my teachers because it is all about you when they come in. If you're in a bad mood, it's gonna, so anyway.
Thank you, Laura.
Yes, I have lots of
Thank you so much.
I know like with your question earlier about, you don't know who the therapists are, they're not coming to the classroom, like if you guys are in like a preschool setting or a school setting, like the therapists and the service providers are there to help. We're supports, like I promise we're not scary people, like we love the kids. We're there, like that's our background, that's our education, that's our passion, is to like be there to help support the kids. So it's like, please, like, if you guys don't come and talk to us and like ask us questions, like we won't know. It's like we're not mind readers, like we need to have like you guys as the teachers and the educators like asking us questions so we can help support those kids. And also I think for me, like I do the PT at school, but I think just making things fun and like making it interesting for the kids, like it's gotta be fun. Like this can't be work, it can't be, oh God, I've gotta like walk 3 laps around, the hallway, like, it's gotta be fun. So I've like really tried to kind of outside of my regular job, like I've gotten very involved in adaptive sports. So I've been doing a lot of work with an organization called Angel City Sports, and we do sports activities for kids and adults with special needs and with physical disabilities. We have an annual games. It's awesome to see kids and their families come meet other kids and families that have similar challenges, and just kind of through sports and health and wellness and activity to see like how happy it makes people. Like it's, giving them options of like resources like that, I think beyond just your typical therapies or whatever it may be, like, they might want to learn how to swim or do track and field or whatever it may be. There are so many resources out there. It's just, educating and letting people know what they are, because they're out there.
Thank you, Kimberly. Awesome.
I don't even know what to tell you. They're so full of information. I would say just be open. Just be open, stay open, and try to not tell the parents what to do, because that's pretty much what we're told by everyone since the time these kids are born. Do this, do that. Well, have you tried to do this? Have you tried to do that? Ask the parents also, how are they doing? Because there were times where, I got swamped with physical therapy, occupational therapy, water therapy, course therapy, music therapy, doctor's appointments. My son has so many other medical issues going on that I lost myself. I really lost myself. I became somebody's nurse, doctor, advocate, lawyer, teacher. I did everything for my son, and the parents tend to lose ourselves. And it gets hard before it gets easier. I've gone through mental breakdowns. I've gone to therapy. I have tried to hurt myself just because it gets overwhelming. As a parent, anyways, you feel like you are the worst job ever. You're just wondering, am I screwing this kid up as much as my parents screwed me up? So, just imagine having a child with special needs on top of everything else. It is super hard. And I remember I had early interventionists coming into my house, and I was just so tired. Her name was Debbie. And I remember she was talking, Carla, sit in this and do that. Next thing I know, I was knocked out. And I woke up and I am so sorry, you were not bored. You were not boring, but I just can't anymore. All I hear is everybody telling me what to do, and I'm starting to doubt myself. Who am I? Am I just somebody else's caregiver, the nurse? Everything, it just gets overwhelming for parents. And at one point, especially with those parents with children in the spectrum and autism, these kids have had a bad day and they're walking. The last thing that we want to hear is how bad he did. And that child is also tired. That kid wants to just relax, come home and relax. And if he already had a bad day at school, he doesn't want to have that same experience at home. So many times also the parents were like, you know what? Do what you gotta do. Do what you gotta do because I don't want to fight my son. I want to enjoy my son. Regardless of what kind of day he had, regardless of what he's doing, regardless of what he's not doing. Just be open with the parents. Try to a little bit. You would never understand them unless you're in those shoes. But you have the education, you're getting education, you see it, you have heard it, and you most likely will experience it.
Thank you, Carmen.
I think what I'd like to leave you guys with is that if you're working with children in any capacity, you guys are always on the front line. You guys are that extra set of eyes that are helping your parents. The parents know exactly what's going on with their child, they know their child best, but when you're in it, like Carla was mentioning, when you're in it, sometimes you get lost, and sometimes you don't always see all of these other signs that you might be able to catch. So, and having education about specific disabilities, about specific therapies, about specific resources is always going to be really helpful for the parents. You have to also keep in mind, like people have been mentioning, not to overwhelm the parents, but you want to make sure that you're providing information to them so that they're equipped to be able to make the decisions. The more information a parent has, the better their decisions are for their child, because ultimately every parent is always looking out for the best for their children. That's all they want, whether they are ready to hear about a concern or not at that point. Every single parent, you have to always keep in mind that whatever decision they're making is based on what they feel is best for their child. All that you can do is just keep providing information, giving them resources so that they can make that decision for themselves. So I think that's one of the most important things. We do notice in the regional center a lot, families will get lost. Sometimes things become about the diagnosis, and then that's all you're focused on. And all you're focused on is therapies and what else can my child get? And people forget that the child is a child. So there are times where you don't want to overwhelm them with too much. There's a certain amount of therapy that they can handle, and then they need to be able to be kids. So giving them the information and those resources so that then they can step back and decide, okay, this is what my child would benefit from, and this is where my child can take a break from now, and this is what's going to be good for our family.
Thank you, Isabel.
As professionals, as growing professionals, I let my teachers know to always have a neutral standpoint. You don't know what these parents deal with, the challenges they face. Always have a smile. Always greet them. Ask them how they're doing. Build a small rapport. That goes a long way, a long way. If I can leave you with a quote, is there needs to be a lot more emphasis on what a child can do instead of what a child cannot do.
Yes.
I believe in that.
Thank you, Glenn.
So if I can leave you with something, I would say, it all sounds really complicated, and it really is, but I would just stress as much as you can to the parents in your lives or yourself as parents that the biggest difference between, like I'm at a school in Beverly Hills, and then the next day I go to a school in South Central, and the biggest difference is just parents being there and fighting for what they believe their child needs, and continuing to do that even when the norm or the system says that that's not what we really want to do. We have a dad that waits every day after school to talk to us because he knows his daughter needs more, and his daughter gets more therapy than I've ever seen, but they fought very hard for that. And so really teaching parents that they have a voice and to use that voice, because some places parents don't even know that there's something to fight for, that those services are available. And so they really need to hear that from people who know, like you guys, and as you guys go into your profession like you will, Dr. Smith is a specialist in this field, and you hear how hard she has to fight as an educated educator of young professionals in this specific area. So imagine people without those resources having a child with special needs, how difficult that is with not a lot of answers or assistance. So really spreading the word wherever you can. And then lastly, as emerging professionals, we all have a really blessed opportunity to be a very small part of what is a lifelong journey for these families. And so deciding where you feel most passionate, where you can make the biggest difference, and then really taking advantage of every second you have with that child, with that client, because you just have a very small window into their life.
Thank you. So let's just give a round of applause for all the panel